Hello guys, welcome back to another Nioh 2 build video. I've hardly slept since the new DLC came out, trying to finish the new difficulty and get this build together. But it's here, the first Fists weapon build guide. Due to the nature of complexity involved when it comes to ethereals and how to obtain the new graces and stuff, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to get through, but we're going to take it slow and I'll try to cover everything in as much detail as I can and offer you solutions to any problems you might encounter whilst trying to mimic this build. First we'll start with the main set. If you want the basic version of this build before you start the new difficulty, you're going to want to farm this set from the new DLC, ideally in Dream of the Demon difficulty, and that is the Brave Demon Hunter set with the set bonus First of the Four Guardians, and we're running the 6-piece, skipping the last piece, which might sound a little bit strange to you, but we'll explain why shortly. For now, you can see this gives us Archer's impact damage, a reduction to damage taken versus yokai, and most importantly, key recovery speed and active skill key consumption reduction. To farm this set, again, I advise doing it on Dream of the Demon. The quest is called the Demon Slayers, it's within the new DLC, and it's the first boss you fight, so you spawn at the shrine, just jump straight down, turn right, and it will be your first encounter right there. The rest can only be obtained in Dream of the Wise, and that is the new graces, the first of which we're running the 4-piece of Takemika's Grace, which gives us 15% key damage versus electrified enemies. Next we have 3 pieces of Marisi's Grace, which gives us auto weakness application on ninjutsu hit. Now you might want to replace this set for something else. I personally run it because of my combo that you usually see me do in the footage, which needs to be as fast and efficient as possible, utilizing animation cancels, etc. And being able to apply weakness automatically without having to cast weakness talisman, as well as not have another spell on my hotbar, is invaluable to me, so that's why I run this. All of these graces are coming from my ranged weapons and accessories, as well as the headpiece, so you can obviously do that in any order you wish. Now the chest piece doesn't actually have a grace, it's just a standalone armor piece that I'm using because it came with great stats, but we will go over the stats shortly. But you might be wondering, if there's space here for another grace or set bonus, then why the hell am I not just taking the 7-piece bonus for First of the Four Guardians? And the answer to that is, we're not using any strength in this build. So if you've played Fists at all, then you will know by now that it's without question the most key intensive weapon in the game. If you can't sustain your key over the course of a long combo, you're not only going to be doing terrible damage, but you're also likely to die. So for that reason, I have a transform bonus courage on my weapon. We then scale our stats with 100 heart and eventually 200 courage. And then on our scroll, we have this amazing skill, Ultimate Courage, which reduces key consumption when attacking and greatly weakens the effects of status elements that slow down your key recovery. So when scaled to courage and we've maxed out our courage stat and have 100 points in heart, have this Ultimate Courage roll on our scroll, 15% recovery speed and active skill key consumption on the armor, as well as melee attack key consumption reduction star rolled onto our gloves, and another 3.5% active skill key consumption reduction on our Yasha Soul Core, as well as the Mystic Art that we're running. We effectively have infinite key, and I'm not saying that with any sort of exaggeration, we literally have infinite key. That means we can combo non-stop, full aggression, maximum uptime on the unbroken stacks. We never need to stop attacking. The only situation where you might need to be conscious of your key management is maybe if you're in the dark realm, but if you ever get in low key, you can just throw out a yokai ability, and in the time it takes for that animation to end, you've already generated all your key back. It's also possible that if you're midway through a combo and you get hit by a big attack, that's obviously going to drain your key too, but the key generation is so fast, it's like you've permanently got barrier talisman on, and on top of that you can carry barrier talisman as well, so it's pretty insane. Before we get into the stats, one thing that's bothering me here is please ignore this hand cannon here. This was an amazing rifle that had Takemika's Grace on it, but whilst leveling it with soul matching, I stupidly soul matched it with a weapon that was max familiarity and had a Grace inheritance roll, so rip that rifle until I find a Grace inheritance with Takemika on another ranged weapon. So let's get into the stats. On the weapon itself, most important thing is transform bonus courage. Now there are various ways you can get this. You can inherit it from a transform bonus that can now be found as an inheritable. Just make sure if you've remodeled your weapon beforehand that you set it back to default before you inherit it, otherwise you might override a different stat to strength. The other way you can get it is the way I got it, which is you just craft divine versions of this weapon at the blacksmith, find one that has this by default, and then use a rarity inheritance soul match to get this weapon to ethereal rarity. After that, you definitely want active skill key damage, attack bonus courage, and active skill key consumption reduction. I then used an orange inheritable to gain some more grapple damage, and this is a heavy key damage build, so you will be grappling a lot. Now the sword here isn't being used, so just ignore the stats. stats, it's just part of the set bonuses. On my ranged weapons, I tend to go for damage bonus, agility, then all things related to weapon speed, followed by the damage modifiers. Notice the star roll, by the way, stalwart on aiming ranged weapons. This allows you to not be flinched out of aiming, which is fantastic. The rifle I had also had this star roll on it, so I'm pretty annoyed that I accidentally saved over the grace. Hopefully I get a grace of inheritance for Takemika soon, but seeing as it would have to drop on a ranged weapon to begin with, it's not looking too good, as ranged weapon graces are by far the hardest thing to come by right now. So if anyone figures out an easy way to farm ethereal ranged weapons, do let me know. Someone in my Discord did just let me know that apparently the mission sunsets on Mount Tenno. There's a corpse near the beginning that pretty much exclusively drops ranged weapons, so farming that in Dream of the Wise might be a good way of getting ranged ethereal graces, similar to how some people used to farm accessories by corpse looting. So the headpiece we're using itself isn't important, but the grace is, and I found this piece that came with Takemika and 2 star rolls by default, so that's why I'm running this helmet. I will say as a baseline, you want to try and aim for key damage on all of your armor pieces, and after that anything that increases your key or reduces key cost. I temper elemental weapon damage as opposed to active skill damage because it's a higher increase, and we always have our weapon imbued manually with lightning by using an Onibi soul core. I also inherit running speed onto all of my gear and use orange inheritables to place attack on all of them as well. So you can see with the chest piece it's the same again. The only difference here is I take life recovery on Amrita absorption and take damage taken at critical, as these two are the best rolls on a chest piece. We've got fantastic star rolls of active skill damage and increased defense on key depletion, which means if we ever get hit mid combo and that drains our key, we automatically pop a defense buff that protects us during that moment. So that's pretty fantastic synergistically speaking, because we have a defense buff attached to key depletion. Like, you couldn't ask for a better combo. So for the gloves, we can temper attack manually onto gloves, so no need for a gold inheritable there. Tempered elemental weapon damage, an extremely lucky star roll of melee attack key consumption reduction. This is huge. Keep any piece of gear that has this rolled onto it. You know, that's almost 10% key cost reduction on a single stat. It's insane. I then use gold inheritables to fill the last 2 slots and then rerolled those to dodge key consumption and tenacity. So on the waist, key recovery bonus and Ritter gauge, elemental weapon damage, a random inheritable, you don't need life increase on your gear, put whatever you want there, a star roll of active skill key damage, and then gold inherited running speed and attack increase. Finally, for the boots, faster winded recovery, inherited running speed, and then a triple star roll of dash key consumption, melee key damage, and active skill damage. Obviously you can't aim to get these stats, but if you were aiming for one of them, it should be melee key damage or active skill key damage, as you can't temper key damage onto your armor, but you can roll the damage modifiers. So for the accessories, we have our Yasakani with melee damage versus 0 key enemy, which we re-rolled via the Sudama whilst it was still divine. And some quick info on the Sudama, by the way. Make sure you do it whilst it's still a divine. Do not try and re-roll after you make an accessory ethereal, because it won't work. After we've got what we want on that accessory whilst it's divine, we then sacrifice it with a stone of penance to make it ethereal. And this one came with Marisi's grace, so ideal. Secondary stats are life recovery on Amrita absorption, shock accumulation, and elemental damage taken. For our second accessory, you see I've got very lucky with the perfect Yatta mirror. Melee damage versus electrified and Takemika's grace, which is the lightning grace, so super lucky there. I then tempered extended elemental weapon, elemental damage taken reduction, and shock accumulation. For the scroll, as mentioned, above all you want ultimate courage. This is the secret to this build, and it's how you have infinite key. We've also got counter yokai tactics, which increases damage and key damage to yokai, and yokai are honestly the only challenge in this game in regards to this weapon. Humans are an absolute joke with fist weapons, so don't even need to worry about them. I would build entirely for yokai engagements. We also have melee key damage and extended dodge invulnerability. Now ideally I would have Mystic Dyad for both Mystic Arts, and I'd give up extended dodge for that, but I haven't been lucky enough to find that on this scroll yet. But you could also be lucky to find it on your weapon alongside transform bonus courage. So for our Guardian Spirit, we're using Kuzunoa. The stats are pretty good, but it's not the reason we take it, but just to cover it, we've got elemental damage, yokai ability damage on ailing enemy, which is all the time, anima bonus on Omyo magic hit, we're always using Spirit Guardian Talisman, and elemental weapon damage 8%. Now this is actually really strong, to be honest, because that's only 2% off being a 5-piece Inari set bonus, so that's really good. But the main reason we're using this is for the Guardian Spirit ability that we access through our Guardian Spirit Talisman. It's the massive corruption beam that you see me start my combos off with in the footage, and we immediately follow up with fire, lightning, and then weakness, and then just smash them to death whilst they're corrupted and can't regain any key, as well as suffering confusion. So for the cores, I'm running good old Gazuki to break the max key bar of enemies, And this one comes with max yokai ability key damage, which is ideal. We also have our Thunderstorm on EB, which is essential, as this is how we imbue our weapon with lightning, and also use this to animation cancel spells in our combo. And finally, the new Yasha Soul Core. This one is optional. There are so many good options here, especially with the new DLC cores, but I'm using this because of the active skill key consumption reduction, as well as the ability to instantly apply saturation if something is immune to lightning or fire. I'm not using the Pepper in this build because of the debuffed key. It's really not good on fist weapons. You need every bit of key you can get, so you definitely don't want to nerf your key by choice, you know. So the Pepper's going to sit this one out for now. For my secondary spirit, I am using Ho for the higher stance attack damage increase, and for the jutsu then Guardian Spirit Talisman. Personally, I run with Fleeting Guardian Amulets, as you can carry 10 of them, and then that frees up space for more Omyo spells. The only issue with these are if you run out of them, it can be expensive to restock them. And they also don't auto restock in long missions when you use a shrine, so you need to be cautious. So for most people, you'll probably just want to go ahead and take the standard Omyo spell version of the Guardian Spirit Talisman. We then have the Flame Dragon Scroll, the Fireball Ninjutsu that you can obtain from Hayabusa in the new DLC. We have Extraction Talisman. This is our main source of healing due to all of our Life on Amrita absorption rolls. The new Water Familiar Talisman. It's free saturation application without you having to do any work. Now, I carry Lantern Plant Fruits to charge my anima before a fight. However, I try not to do this unless I'm getting footage for boss fights for YouTube, because you can't buy these and farming them is a pain. So only use these in an emergency. You don't want to have to go and farm for these, trust me. Like, it's far more efficient to just summon a bunch of cats, because at least those you can actually purchase. Arch Yokai Talisman for further anima generation in combat. Quick Change Scroll, because, you know, Wise hits pretty damn hard. Carnage Talisman for the big deeps, followed by Soul Purge Talisman, which I don't advise you use unless you absolutely know you can kill the boss in time, otherwise you're going to lose all the familiarity on your weapon. So only use this if you know you can kill the boss and leave the mission before the buff wears off. Finally, Rejuvenation and Barrier Talisman, which I mostly use for co-op, as I can give this to allies. So Barrier just takes this build to ridiculous levels of key regeneration, so I'd probably suggest bringing that one along as well. We'll go over the combat and my combos in more detail in just a moment, but first I want to show you the prioritized skills and modifiers. So instead of grapple, we have Azuna drop for human enemies, and this ability also drops from Hayabusa in the DLC. We prioritize the Unbowed Mystic Art for the reduced key consumption. In high stance, we have Fists of Reckoning, Battering Ram, Spinning Kick, Limitless, Rising Gale, and Kick Cycle. And in mid stance, Fractured Foe, Battering Ram, Spinning Kick, Reckless Charge, Rising Gale, and Archer's Impact. I won't cover low stance because I don't actually use it as of yet. Everything I need revolves around mid stance and high stance in terms of my combos. The most important modifiers to attach are definitely Arcana of Lightning to Reckless Charge, as typically Reckless Charge will be your opener, and this will be a guaranteed instant lightning proc as you begin the fight. From there, we're almost always going to transition into Archer's Impact, so we attach our biggest damage boost there, which is Damage Boost Courage for maximum damage, and then we usually transition from there into Spinning Kick, which is one of our biggest key damaging moves, so we capitalize on that key damage by attaching Masterful Slice. From there, we usually transition into high stance, hit a quick Fists of Reckoning, into Kick Cycle, and then end with a finisher, which is going to be Limitless. I advise not trying to use Limitless unless the enemy is downed or out of key, because it has a massive wind up animation and drains all your key. So this is where we're going to attach Reckless Slice, because this skill is going to drain all of our key and is a finisher, so we're not going to need to key pulse after it, and we're going to get an extra 10% damage on the skill at the cost of that key pulse removal. And I'll just play a clip from the dojo that shows the whole basic combo in action. Now, against yokai bosses, how you approach the fight as a whole is going to be situational, and it's going to depend on how you want to fight. But the opener, at least in my case, is always the same in terms of my combo, and that's going to be Guardian Spirit Talisman, animation cancel into Oni B Soul Core, start casting Flame Dragon, wait for the animation to send out the Fireball, and then I'm going to close the gap with Reckless Charge, and then just start fighting. Typically I'm going to be trying to spam as many spinning kicks as possible to drain the key, but also using the perfect timing of transitioning between Archer's Impact and Spinning Kick to gain stacks of Unbroken. Once the key is depleted, we're going to hit Gazuki to smash the max key bar, which is going to drop the boss down down for a grapple, at which point I switch into high stance and start casting Limitless, smash them, and in some cases we still have time for a grapple. Some enemies stay down longer than others, so you won't always be able to get that grapple in, but when they do stand back up, their debuffs will have been wiped, so we want to back up and throw out another Guardian Spirit Talisman, another Flame Dragon, and then I usually immediately hit another Gazuki because I know it's going to drop them again because their max key bar should be far lower than it was before, and then we can repeat the cycle of high stance, Limitless into grapple, which should see them dead by this point. Now it's at this point that I will mention why we're not using versatility, because you can see how fast we can kill bosses with this build. If we were to be using versatility, whilst over a long run versatility would be more damage, the amount of time it takes to stack up all of those stacks of versatility for our build, the boss is already dead by then, so it would actually slow us down by taking versatility than it would be to run the build we're running. Now if we take a look at the Fists tree itself, I highly recommend picking up these passives such as Indomitable Spirit, Passage to the Afterlife, Cornered Boar, 7 Stars of Cutter, Cornered Tiger, and 3 Wars of Cutter. For the stats, I'm currently level 455, but if we imagine from a base of 400, which was the max level for Dream of the Demon, we have to consider in terms of priorities. So firstly, we take everything we need in terms of gear, Yasakani, spirit requirements. I take 30 in Dex and Magic because 30 is the maximum amount of points needed to reach maximum capacity for your jutsu. I put 10 into skill and strength to round them off before putting the exact amount of points needed into stamina to reach 70% encumbrance or under, which gives us a B agility rating. In this case, it's 43 points in stamina. Next, it's really going to depend on your level and your setup. So for example, if you have a scroll with ultimate courage, you're going to need 150 points in courage to even activate that. So 150 in courage is essential for that scroll and ultimately the build, but you're then going to want to aim for 100 in heart and then 100 in constitution. 100 in heart both as a damage scaler and also for the key increase, and without 100 points in constitution you're going to get hit very hard, like to the point you might get one shot in Dream of the Wise without it. So it's hard to say which one you should prioritize first. I would say go for courage first, and then once you have 150 go for 100 in heart and then constitution, and then after that you're going to want to come back to courage and completely max it out. Finally, for my clan, I am using Tekanaka for the active skill key damage, but the 8% melee damage at max rank is also pretty good. It's 3 damage, and that so far pretty much sums up this build for now. Obviously we're new into the DLC, so this build itself will probably improve over time. I'm fairly certain this is only one of several fist builds I'm going to be making, as well as other weapons and sets and grace combinations, so stay tuned for those. As always, if there's anything I've missed, please feel free to ask down in the comments and I'll do my best to respond to you directly. Otherwise, you're also welcome to join our Discord, where not only myself but everyone in our awesome community will help you with any questions you have, or just come hang out. You're also welcome to follow us on Instagram, where I post daily content, not just from Nioh. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, consider doing so for more Nioh 2 content coming soon. Okay guys, stay safe and take care.